this page gonna load for me? My apologies, everyone, for the delay. Here we go. Okay, so FaramFoundation.com, medicinehat.canada HTM. I am copying this, putting it in the live chat for everybody. I encourage people to do your own research and read up on Arthur Faram's work, because it is absolutely astounding and it will change your worldview forever and your understanding of ancient history. And we're going to finish this episode off with listening to a video from Arthur Faram himself giving a presentation about the Yanaguni pyramid. But this right here is the Medicine Hat Badlands Geoglyphs by Arthur Faram. So, of course, my Crypto Alchemist logo is this face right here. There is an additional Viking head above him, an additional Olmec right here, and I believe an additional face here as well. The Olmec. And then, of course, this face and the feathered serpent headdress guy. And that these throughout all of here are where I went and took the photos of all of the terraces. And that Arthur Faram found these faces from using his geoglyphs. And there's these geoglyphs sites here. They're earthenworks of specific lines that are specific lengths and angles that he then measures and plots out, and they literally plot out to all the other ancient sites and ancient pyramid sites of the world. Oh, is this another face here and another face there? Potentially, maybe not. Maybe one here, maybe one here, maybe not. Maybe one there, maybe not. But definitely right there, and then the pictures aren't even large enough to show the other ones. But here are satellite images showing the lines of these earthenworks that are the geoglyphs that Arthur Faram finds, and then he plots out. And sure enough, like one of these lines here, its lengths and measurements literally plots out to Hawaii, or to the tip of the Baja Peninsula, or to Mexico, Mazatlan, or no, that is Teotihuacan there, and just all over. Tip of Ireland on one of them. It's just nuts. And Arthur Faram's discoveries rewrite all of history. And that is what we are going to get into next. And it's a pleasure. I believe this is like the only presentation video I've been able to find of Arthur Faram on YouTube, and it's from his official channel. Maybe I'm ignorant and haven't seen. He's got more videos on his channel, but the other video linked on the website, YouTube doesn't even host it anymore, which is very suspect. Anyways, we're looking at the other geoglyph sites. My aim this year is to go back and document these before they get destroyed, and confirm all of Arthur Faram's discoveries and work and the geoglyphs of the Medicine Hat Badland Guardians. This, of course, is an access road to an oil derrick. And I've been saying it forever, but I literally just like put the relevance of it, of they're literally pumping oil out of this guy's ear, like, or his head. Like, there's an oil derrick there, they're pumping oil out of this guy, and that is a road. And this is a satellite image, and that is the location. There's your oil derrick. All right. here we go. On that note, let us start listening to some Arthur Faram and his presentation on the Yanaguni structure, a pyramid underwater, and how all of its angles also plot out to these radials, and it's just astounding.
So much for that. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I've got a soft voice. You'll start over again. My name is Arthur Faram. I'm an investigative historian and a geoglyphologist by accident. While investigating my family history several years ago, I stumbled upon an ancient science that I named Geoglyphology. It's probably more than 200,000 years old. And that will be applied to the Yanaguni pyramid. I'm really kind of here under false pretenses because while I was preparing my talk about the Yanaguni pyramid, I decided what good is knowing about a pyramid if you don't know where it came from and its history. So I started investigating the Japanese history of the Yanaguni pyramid, and lo and behold, I stumbled upon something else again. I believe I've stumbled on the Holy Grail of all the things that we have all been looking for, and I'm going to read my introduction. I don't like reading at the dais, but I don't want to skip. This is too important to skip over anything. What I found during my research was the Holy Grail of man's history, which anthropologists, archaeologists, and theologians have been searching for hundreds of years. Until now, the Sumerian tablets have been the high watermark for information on man's history.
Oh, just wait, child.
Sumerian
we got a lot of
tablets
this.
only go back 6,000 years. What I discovered was a written history that goes back millions of years and has lain protected and unmolested for millennia. It seems that due to cultural and linguistical barriers, we have overlooked the texts that have existed in Japan, where the first presence of man was recorded millions of years ago. These texts reveal the answer to many of the questions which man has speculated on, but until now has not had the documentation with which to answer those important questions. Some of the important questions which are answered by the Japanese texts are: where do we come from? Why do we find advanced technology so far back in the past? Are there really UFOs? Why are there so many similar structures that exist around the world? Why are there so many similar stories around the world?
All right, so I just momentarily paused it there for a second, just for everyone now joining in to give a little bit of context. The individual speaking is Arthur Faram. This is the Faram Research Foundation. He's speaking about his discoveries of geoglyphology, and this is the video from there, the Yanaguni Pyramid, and his geoglyphology from that. And Konnichiwa, Tranquil Vortex. Good day, London Man, KJV, peace, brother. Welcome, everybody. So, yeah, let's listen in back to Arthur Faram, and it's quite astounding. He talks about Anunnaki and all.
Japan is one of the few places which has not been conquered and ravaged over the years. Therefore, they've been able to keep their history intact. Both the Japanese and the Hindus teach their past as history rather than myths. I'm sure you've heard of the ancient period in world history known as the Golden Age of Civilization. I've always wondered when that period ended. The Japanese text answers that question. It seems that it began to deteriorate after the last apocalypse caused by the Younger Dryas event around 12,900 BC.
So what is that?
The Younger Dryas event, when a meteorite it fragmented and hit all across the United States, especially the eastern coast, and melted the glaciers. And that precipitated the deluge, of water and the rising of the sea that happened so quickly because it melted the ice.
You got 2 miles of ice, you got a lot to melt.
That's right, exactly right. That's right. As will be supported by the presentation, the degeneration of peace and harmony was in a slow decline until the Anunnaki decided to leave the pantheon of gods and began living with man. Until then, the only contact with man was to teach them.
Me too.
The Anunnaki treated man as his slave
right back.
and taught us many of the despicable practices which we see today. The Anunnaki are what we call the fallen angels. Both our creators and the Anunnaki lived among man on earth and have waged both physical and spiritual war with each other ever since their defection around 4500 BC. These are the battles which were documented in the Hindu texts. So now we have 3 entities. The Anunnaki as the bad guys, the Hindus as the record keepers of the physical war, and the Japanese Sumera Mikoto as the good guys. The Sumera Mikoto was the name of the gods when they came here from another planet. And this eventually evolved into the Japanese being called the Ainu, A-I-N-U. And that name will play a part in the beginning of the Anunnaki's part in world history. The ancient gods were giants, 20 to 24 feet tall and taller. The reason is we find little left of their work was because they had great psychic abilities and for the most part did not need tools. Bones of the giants have been found in every state in the United States. Some burial sites contain the bones of as many as 150 to 200 bodies. So where are those bones now? Every time a grave is found, the bones go to that dark hole known as the Smithsonian, which we all love, never to be seen again. The object of my presentation today will be to prove the continuity of the presence of what we know as the ancient gods from their original presence in Japan down to the present day. There are many organizations and governments that already know this information, but are afraid to share it. We were created in the image of the gods and have the ability to develop these same psychic powers ourselves. This is proven by the powers of the Buddhist monks in Tibet. However, if we learn that we are independent beings, governments and religions around the world would lose the power which they have over us. Always remember that fear is the easiest way to control someone. My friends, have no fear.
Say that last line again.
Have no fear. If you have no fear, nobody can control you.
My friends,
I have
no fear. Right? Listen to Arthur Faram right there. What great advice. My friends, have no fear, because without fear, they cannot control you. Know that your soul is infinite and that death is just a passing and that you are immortal. So what you do in this life, that is what matters. That will what stays with you, your karmatic soul and imprint. And, make a difference. Make your life count. That is the power. Amen. All right. So enough of that sermon. I'm trying to find Arthur Faram's book to show, but I cannot. So first, let's give just a little bit more. All right. On Arthur Faram's website, the Yanaguni Pyramid Geoglyphs. So a bit more context and reference material here for what Arthur's about to go into. For those that have never seen the Yanaguni, no retreat, no surrender. I agree, Gerald. Bless all of your souls for being here today, or whenever it is, whatever day you watch this. But yes, the Yanaguni Pyramid, under 400 feet of water, ocean water, must have been pre-Ice Age structure. It is the ruins of an ancient pyramid off the southern tip of the southern islands of Japan of Yanaguni. And, there's the location, Yanaguni right here. So this is Taiwan and China. So Yanaguni, this little Yanaguni island is like all the Japanese islands are way up there. It's like it's closer to Taiwan than any major Japanese island. But the glyphs and the geology. So here is the top-down topographical drawing of the structure in each of like the different platforms, their lengths, their angles and sides, the view from above, right? And then here are the measurements of all of those angles that Arthur Faram, right, not to scale obviously, then applies his geoglyphology to, and boom, right here. Let's see if I can make that larger for everyone. If you can see this, take a screenshot. That is absolutely insane. Each of these plots out to this, all of these undeniable sites around the world, which is this territory right here. The territory outlined by the radials of the Yanaguni geoglyph pyramid site. It goes around the Korean peninsula, contains all Japan, touches the Kuril Islands, and to Hawaii, to Solomon Islands, Papua New Guinea, Thailand, like just, well, it's identical to the same territory that Japan, the Empire of Japan, conquered during World War II at the height of the empire, the Japanese Empire, and what it also attacked, in Pearl Harbor. Like, this is the reach of Japan during World War II, exact same territory out in the angles plotted out on this pyramid map that sits 500 feet below the ocean, right there on the tip of Japan. Boom, same territory, just wild. Okay, so let's get back to this guy right here that discovered it all and hear what he has to say about it.
Surprise for you that probably none of you, very few, have ever seen. This is called the Kolbrin Bible. Okay? As I said, the original gods, and there was more than one, we know who God is, most of the people in this room. God is the cosmic ether and the universal consciousness. That's who created it. That's what created everything, and who we communicate with and how we communicate with each other psychically. But there were many gods, as they were called, as they were named by man, that came here to teach us, and we came from those gods. And yes, we were created in their image. But this was put together by the Phoenicians in 2 BC to collect all the information that we had been handed down by the gods since they began teaching us. Now, we all know that once the Catholic Church came along, all this went by the wayside. In fact, the Catholic Church ordered that all the information here be destroyed. And the Phoenicians took this document to the Celts in England, where it laid for many years. And there were several copies left in England and probably none left in Europe. And once King James decided to start his church, he ordered the rest of them in England destroyed. Well, the Celts wrote the information down on bronze plates, and for thousands of years it was known as the Bronze Book. Mostly it was known by the Kolbrin. The Bible was tacked on by this particular printer because Bible just means a book. This doesn't have any religious connotation. This can only be bought on the internet, and it was only put out on the internet in 2005. So it's really new. And if you're interested in seeing what we should be doing, it's in here. Kolbrin. I'm going to read you a passage out of it. This thing reads so wonderfully, you don't want to put it down. And there's no hell and brimfire in it. It just makes you want to be good.
Who and when was, how did it get interpreted in English?
Well, the Celts had it, and so if they know Celt and English, it's not hard to change. Then God lifted his hand from man, and man was alone. The great vision departed, and he awoke. Only a dim and elusive recollection, no more than a shadow of a dream remained. But deep within the sleeping soul, there was a spark of remembrance, and it generated within man a restlessness, longing for he knew not what. Henceforth, man was destined to wander discontented, seeking something he felt he knew, but could not see, something which continually eluded him, perpetually goading him and forever tantalizing him. Deep within himself, man knew something greater than himself was always with him and part of him, spurring him on to greater deeds, greater thoughts, greater aspirations. It was something out beyond himself, scarcely realized and never found, something which told him that the radiance seen on the horizon, but dimly reflected, had hidden the glory beyond it. That's how this reads.
Wonderful.
Isn't it great? As an 18-year-old Marine, I stood in that exact place and took that exact picture. And I can tell you, Japan is one of the most beautiful places on the face of the earth, and has some of the most wonderful people. Oh, something I also wanted to say about that. When I first got to Japan, little did I know that all the restrooms in the bars were unisex. They only had one restroom. And so I went waltzing into the bathroom, and my wife's saying, don't tell this. I went waltzing into the bathroom, and I'm sitting there washing my hands, and I hear the stall behind me open and close. And I finished washing my hand, and I turn around, and here's this beautiful Japanese woman standing there. And she turns around and she says, would you zip up my dress? And as I'm zipping up her dress, I thought only one thing. Thank you, God.
No, I didn't know.
According to the Taniguchi documents in Japan, the source of all human civilization, unifying in itself the world's cultures in peace and harmony. The documents tell of how the Samara Mikoto came to Earth from a higher world on a Mino Yukafunis, that's the spaceships. The world government was located in Japan, and the Samara Mikoto unified the world. The great holy masters of the world, Moses, Jesus, Mohammed, Sukiyami Buddha, Confucius, and Lao Tzu, were born from the 5 colored races which branched off from the Samara Mikoto and all went to Japan for study and training. In the next slide, I believe, it tells about the history of the Samara Mikoto. And as you can see, they've got quite an ancient history, especially the 300 billion years. I think there was a little tweak in the translation here, because my impression is that the High Ancient was in another Earth, and they say it was travel the Earth, travel the world. I think there was a different world, and that the 3 million years started here. Our Earth is 4.5 billion years old, so it could not be the 300 billion year place. And it says, the world emperor loses material prosperity, but continues to send teachers around the world. That would stand to reason. If he came from another world, he would have lost everything that he had. This is the part I like. In 660 BC, which is not that long ago, the present degenerate age, that's us, teachers and prophets began to come to Japan, named after the Yamato tribe. And you'll see later that there's evidence that they quit traveling the world because everybody tried to kill them like we do everything else around us. And so everybody had to go to Japan to learn. And there's evidence and documentation that Jesus went to Tibet and to Japan. In fact, this was hard for me to believe, there actually is a grave in Japan with Jesus' headstone on it. I kind of wonder about that, but there really is a grave there. If anybody's worried about or has any doubts about the time man's been on Earth, here's a 150,000-year-old pipe in China, of which 8% of the material it cannot be identified. And believe it or not, it was feeding water underneath a pyramid. And as we all know, a pyramid can't function without running water underneath it.
Right? So it's like 150,000-year-old documented pipes running underneath the Chinese pyramids. Like, that's just what? When you really fathom that? And it's like, I remember when this was released, like in the official studies, and it's an part, and like there's several of them, and then the Chinese government came in and covered up, was like, don't dig here anymore. And like literally the Chinese pyramids are so advanced and so ancient, it is just wild. So we will continue on.
There's some more ancient stuff, some 260 million years old footprints in Albuquerque, and a 4-foot footprint in Africa. Now, due to tectonic movements, it's now up on edge, but that's supposed to be 300 million to 1 billion years old. And it's 4 feet tall, which means if you multiply it out, that the person would have to be 24 feet tall. Okay, now this is the beginning of the current history that I have gathered. And it begins after the last apocalypse, which was after the Ice Age. And what happened was there was a fog or a cloud or a haze, something that blocked the sun. And these people here were praying that someone would come save them. And out comes, it says from a cave, could have been a spaceship, out comes this, what they later was called the Queen of the Earth. And she replaced her brother, which just happened to be what we know as Poseidon. He had a Japanese name then, but it gives us the complete story of how what happened to him, and is exactly the same as Plato described in Critias. And that is that there were sections of the earth divided up for the different individuals to go teach in. And these are the original territories that they were obliged to teach in. Each person had a different place. Whoops, that's not what I wanted to do. And as you can see right there, that's Japan. There's China. This is some Japanese history that they put up. Shows what we would call flying saucers.
It's like in between a flying saucer and a flying
Japan,
magical rug, Persian rug.
They knew what many of us know, that what really makes the universe go around is the cosmic ether and universal consciousness. This is the creator. This is how we all communicate.
That's right. Arthur Faram knows. Universal consciousness, creation, and ether is what makes the universe go round. Boom.
With one another if we're capable of it. But being human beings, they had to have something physical to worship. And it turned out, since it was visible and it gave life to the earth, it turned out they chose the sun. Now this here, whoops. This diagram here is the very first compilation of the lines that started the first Japanese writing. They used pieces of this particular image to compose their Japanese writing, and I'll show you that in a second. Here is half of that. And what this is God, and they were venerating God by using it in their writing. This is a heavenly God. This is an earthly God. And you're going to see these all over the place. In fact, you've seen them several times if you were watching today in the present. Somebody else said this too. This is a very spiritual place right now, as most of you know. And without fail, every presentation that's been so far, part of it's contained in this. So we're all meant to be here for a reason. So this is a heavenly God. That's an earthly God. And this is the earthly God leader in Japan. And as you remember, the Emperor of Japan used this as his symbol clear up to the Second World War. So this was the leader of the earthly gods, which the Emperor took the place of later on. This is the Anunnaki symbol for God. And this is the Anunnaki symbol for, this is the heavenly God. This is their earthly gods. And you can exchange the word God with king, Lord, whatever makes you comfortable. But since the myths of the world have labeled them gods, that's what I'm going to use. But later on, this symbol was changed to that one. And I'm sure that one's very familiar to you too. So my job today is to take these symbols and show you the continuity down from ancient Japan to today. And I think I'll do it. Okay, there's the Sumerian alphabet. And you can see that it's made up of the cuneiform features of their alphabet, their God. There's the Rongo on Eastern Island, more cuneiform.
It's all
I'm
cuneiform.
going to jump all over the world just to show you that there was a world organization at one time. Now there's the Japanese alphabet,
Boom.
which composed a poem, the first poem of the Katakana
Look at that. Yeah.
documents. And as you'll notice, it goes in a spiral, okay? And it has the earthly God in the middle, which means this was composed on earth, not in heaven. As you will see as we progress, this spiral means something. If it spirals to the right, it means an earthly God. I mean, if it spirals to the right like this one, it's a heavenly God. If it spirals to the left, it concerns an earthly God. And it's easy to remember because if you write an E, you start bringing it to the left. And if you start a G, it goes to the right. Okay, now here's some things that you might be able to get your teeth into. This is symbols that were on the ukifune of the Japanese on the outside of their UFOs. Here's some symbols that the Air Force person that went up next to the spaceship at Bentwater in England, this is what he saw. These symbols here are off the Roswell spaceship. You didn't really think it was a kite, did you?
Which one?
This is Roswell. Whoops. So there's three different writings on UFOs, and all of them follow to a large degree the Japanese alphabet. Obviously, the third one is more advanced.
Just paused it for a second. Like, I need to get a hold of Arthur Faram and find a source for this, because if true, absolutely astounding and insane. But let's continue.
The Hittites came right after the Anunnaki. As you'll see as we go along, the Anunnaki were run out of the Mesopotamian Valley, and the Hittites were the next culture after them. You had the Hittites, the Assyrians, and then the Babylonians. And here's Hittite symbols. You have Hittite symbols, and then not so far in our past, you have Celtic symbols. Take a look. They're almost identical. Okay, here's a French. The French had a big part in keeping the ancient word alive, probably because they were Celtic. But anyway, as you can see here, you've got the spiral, and this is the left spiral, which means...
Again, I gotta pause this and shout out to Shem Jacobs, Tartarian Truth. I know he is gonna want to hear this clip, and thus I had to pause it and take a clip of it. And yeah, the French, of course, taking a huge part in the manipulation of language and it all. Let's continue. And epic work by Arthur Faram explaining the linguistics and breakdown from cuneiform to now.
Earthly, this concerns the earth, and you've got the Japanese mum, and you've got these symbols here, which is a symbol for wisdom. Here is, as one person said, a beaker design on a cup. And the Ainu, remember I said that's the later Japanese, and this is some of their symbols, and you'll see them again. But what I would like for you to look at is that there and that there. This is 7,000 years old. And this design matches that one. And guess what? They called it Ichi. Ichi in Japanese is number 1, which would be God. You've seen that on Giorgio's collar for years. And it's, yeah, and it's real. It's real. They've made it fly. And after you see this presentation, I hope you'll think it's real. It was called the Amino Ukifuni, and there were several different kinds. There were 4 different forms of these. There were discs, which we're familiar with, rockets, ships and jets, and they were used differently depending on the purpose. And I'm sure most of you have seen the hieroglyph from Egypt on the wall that's got what everybody thinks is an airplane, a boat, and all that stuff. And it's probably real. Okay, one of the races, there were, according to the text, Japanese text, there were 5 races. Blue, white, yellow, brown, and black. Now, down through my research, we didn't find the black people, so I figured that they probably came later. Either that or they had a terrible prejudice. Okay, here's a Buddhist depiction of the gods as they would have been in Japan. And as you can see, the size as compared to the humans down here. And they all have a halo. And a blank halo would denote a holy man, as you will see later on.
There's no blue.
Yeah, there's a blue one in there.
Where?
On the left.
Blue, white, yellow, brown.
Blue, white, yellow, brown, or red, whichever you prefer. These here, as you will see later, are spheres of knowledge. That's what they represent. And I just pulled some stuff out of the Hindu text just to show you that as far as they're concerned, there really were blue people. There's Vishnu in her flying machine. Okay, now we're going to get into Sumer, where the Anunnaki lived. And if you'll notice, the word Sumer is Sumara with the A missing. And the Anunnaki, Anu, the god that came down and started the Anunnaki, is Ainu with the I missing. And you're going to see quite a bit of that. They just took one letter out and said, okay, we're as good as you guys, and we're going to start a new civilization. Okay, this is the Mesopotamian Valley here, and the Anunnaki lived in Sumer. But I found out that over here in Ur were the Samara Mikoto, and eventually they were able to run them out. The unfortunate part of that is the rest of the world had to deal with them. And you will see in some of my stuff and in the history that you already know that there was some pretty despicable people in history down through time. And the rule of thumb that I use to kind of differentiate the good guys from the bad guys is the good guys dispensed peace and harmony, and the bad guys dispense grief. So if you see some gods that are talked about, kind of look at that and you can kind of decide who the descendants of who are. And here's what I'm talking about the Anunnaki stealing stuff. The first Anunnaki god was named Anu, and it means great lord. Well, the name Anunnaki, guess where that came from? Anu, the Japanese word for lord, Na, the word for noble, Ki, and also it's a trident, which you see a lot of. So the Anunnaki, whether they named themselves or somebody else did, took the Anunnaki, took the Anu, Na, Ki, and so it's half Japanese and half Anunnaki. As you'll notice, there's an extra N in the current translation of Anunnaki, and you'll see that the Hopi people added an N, or when it was conjugated, Anu was the ant people for the Hopi, and N-N-A-K-I were their friends, which fits right into what I'm talking about. And I found that the Hopi Indians of the United States maintained the spirituality that was taught to them probably more than anybody else. But most of the Native Americans retained the spirituality, and the United States seems to be the centerpiece for the knowledge that was passed down to them. And unfortunately, the Native Americans adhered to it and were practically wiped out. Okay, now before the Anunnaki left the tribe, so to speak, there was already trouble in the Mesopotamian Valley. And this is illustrated by this demon here that was found that came from the 7th and 8th century. Well, the Anunnaki were in the 5th century, the 5th century BC. So there was already trouble in the Mesopotamian Valley before the Anunnaki left, and they probably left. These guys are having too much fun. In fact, what they said to their bosses were, we've been teaching these people for 40,000 years and they haven't learned a thing. Maybe if we go down and live with them, we can teach them something. Well, they went down and lived with them. Instead of teaching them something, they taught them all the bad stuff and became just like them. Okay, a lot of people think the Anunnaki are good guys. I'm going to read this for just the people that can't read it, and this kind of sums it up. Anu, the Mesopotamian sky god and member of the triad of deities completed by Enlil and Enki. Like most sky gods, Anu, although theoretically the highest god, played only a small role in the mythology, hymns, and cults of Mesopotamia. He was the father of evil spirits and demons, most prominently the demoness Lamashtu, who preyed on inference. Anu was also the god of kings and of the yearly calendar. Excuse me. He was typically depicted in a headdress with horns, a sign of strength. Lamashtu, his daughter. In Mesopotamian religion, the most terrible of all female demons, daughter of the sky god Anu, a wicked female who slew children and drank the blood of men and ate their flesh. She had 7 names and was often described in incantations as the 7 witches. Lamashtu perpetrated a variety of evil deeds. She disturbed sleep and
talk about witches and summoning demons, and well, I'm not saying Shem Jacobs is either of those, but I look back and there's a soup's chick from Shem. You didn't have to do that, brother, but hopefully you were listening about 7 minutes ago when he was explaining the French symbology into the Sumerian language of the Anunnaki. And yeah, well, apparently the Anunnaki here are like vampires or demons and eating our flesh or drinking our blood. Or Careless Whispers, bless you and thank you. And yeah, the sun is shining today, and here we are. And I have to keep interrupting the Faram presentation because this is for scrutiny, not entertainment purposes. We are trying to learn from his geoglyphology here and the Yanaguni structure with the geoglyphs. And this is the story of the Japanese history and the Hindu history with the Anunnaki. And then here's the second site of geoglyphs. They're just off the tip of Taiwan, and like sure enough, they directly mark out the tips of the Japanese islands, the Kuril Islands, and then a bunch of like the Micronesian islands and stuff. So for a seafaring navigating society, these geoglyphs on the coast under the ocean may be a way how they navigated and from the different islands throughout the Pacific and Indo. And like here another point peninsula of Taiwan here. And I guess this is just submerged or some rocks. Yeah, I guess giant megalithic rocks off the coast. Each one of those is a rock. So from the pinnacle point to each tip of the rock, he measures out there. And they also all plot out to specific tiny little islands in Micronesia, in the Pacific, Okinawa, Hawaii, Wake Island, Kiribati, Christmas Island. Is that also not Easter Island? Marshall Island, Guam, and Samo on these rocks right here off of that pinnacle point. Degree north tip of Japan, south tip of Japan, Okinawa Island, Samoa, and Fiji in that one, or these ones. All right, so sorry about the interruption. Name of the site is the Arthur Faram. Oh, I guess this actually is Yanaguni.ws, but here we go. So I'm posting that. This is what we're looking at right now. Yeah, definitely check that out. And let's get back to Arthur Faram.
Brought nightmares. She killed foliage and infested rivers and streams. She bound the muscles of men, caused pregnant women to miscarry, and brought disease and sickness. Lamashtu was often portrayed on amulets as a lion or bird-headed female figure kneeling on an ass. She held a double-headed serpent in each hand and suckled a dog at her right breast and a pig at her left breast.
She sounds lovely.
Yes. Your dream girl. Okay, this is the Anunnaki symbol. And as you can see, they've taken the 8-sided heavenly God symbol and placed a 4-sided earthly God symbol over the top of it. It also gives you an idea of the size difference between the Anunnaki and the human beings. Okay, after the Anunnaki were run out of the Mesopotamia Valley, the first culture to show up that was the good guys was the Hittites. And this is a picture of the god Shamash presenting the code of Hammurabi to Babylon. Okay, this was not the Hittites. This was 3 cultures later in Babylon. The code of Hammurabi was one of the several sets of laws in the ancient Near East The code of laws was arranged in orderly groups so that everyone who read the laws would know that what was required of them. Earlier collections of laws included the code of Annunaki. So there you go. You've got some information coming from Ur, from the king of Ur, which was about 2050 BC. The laws of Ishnununa in 1930 BC, and the Codex of Lipit Ishtar of Ishin in 1870 BC. While later ones included the Hittite laws, which they passed down, and the Assyrian laws, which they passed down, there was also the Mosaic law, and we all know about that one. These codes came from similar Moses incidentally visited Japan, along with Jesus and all these other people. These codes came from similar cultures in a relatively small geographical area, and they have passages which resemble each other. Sorry, Bob, there's Wikipedia. Okay, to show that we're back on track with the good guys, here's the symbols. This is the god Shamash from Babylonia in 1400 BC. You've got the Japanese mom, you've got the earthly god cross, and as you can see, it's surrounded by a halo. And strangely enough, that is the same depiction that appeared in a cave next to a Roman encampment where the Nazarenes were teaching the Roman soldiers Christianity. So it must mean the high God on the earth. And also over here, you see the heavenly God in this text. So by 1400 BC, at least, we were back on track, at least in the Mesopotamian Valley. And I suspect that the reason everyone has believed that civilization started in Mesopotamia is because of all the confusion that happened with the Anunnaki. And we really, as imperfect beings, came from these people. And so in effect, we really were created in Mesopotamia because the people before that were gentle people that did what God told them to do. There's the god Shamash presenting the code of Hammurabi. We're going backwards again. This thing keeps switching itself. Okay, now I've seen a lot of people talk about the Jewish heritage throughout this conference, and I want you to know that the Jews were instrumental in straightening out this mess that the Anunnaki made. And the Jewish religion, or the Jewish
Jews sorted out the Anunnaki mess.
Some of the oldest on the earth that have been continually in practice. And I suspect that the fact that they don't worship a god is because they know the truth, and they're meditating and waiting for a true Savior to come back, which is what they say too. Up here you can see the Thunderbird, which evolved in Native America also. But now instead of having an Anunnaki face in it, it's got the Japanese mum back in it. Okay, there's the Anunnaki. And any of the people that you see in this presentation that have wings, they didn't have wings. This just denotes the fact that they could fly in their machines.
That makes sense.
This has been a point of controversy for many years. People have said, what in the world is that satchel that every picture of an Anunnaki has? Well, I think we have the answer right there. Those are poppies that you make heroin out of. And research has shown that the first evidence of heroin on the face of the earth was in the Mesopotamian Valley at the same time the Anunnaki were there. Now, there's a 20-foot tall skeleton found by a team of archaeologists in Australia. Now, all the articles I've read about giants and bones found say they're all hoaxes, and probably a lot of them are, but here you've got a team of archaeologists studying this one. and he's 20 feet tall. And if it's archaeologists, if it truly is archaeologists, it's probably true. There's a leg bone of a giant in the Greek Museum. Okay, one of the practices of the Anunnaki giants after they left was they carried on their hell raising. And here you see all over the world depictions of the giants eating people, which is even the Native Americans talked about giants that would eat their people, and just, they stayed out of the
cannibalistic savage giants. There are stories of them all over, and it's kind of terrifying. I always just wish that that's not what we encounter if and when we encounter some next.
forest where they were. Here you have an Anunnaki plaque in Ecuador. One in Ecuador and one in Mesopotamia. There are some giants in Texas, the Near East, Central Asia, and United States. Now, this is the genes popping up that the Anunnaki placed in the human race, and it's pretty much all gone, but there are instances where it shows up. Universal symbols is the main way I'm going to show continuity down through from the Japanese to the present day. Those symbols there are ones I showed you before. You've got the Japanese version of the heavenly God and the Japanese version of the earthly God, the Sumerian version of the heavenly God, and the Sumerian version of the earthly God. Now, I'm going to take this opportunity to answer a challenge put to me by somebody we all love and respect, Scott Walter. Before his presentation yesterday, I said, I have the solution to the puzzle of the monogram on the lid of the ossuary of Jesus. And I said, it's yours if you want it. And he says, well, how about if we wait until my presentation and I'll tell you what it is. And I said, okay, and then we can discuss it afterwards. Well, at the end of his discussion, he made a challenge that if you got one, prove it. So I told him I was going to take up this challenge, and that's what I'm going to do right now. And you can make up your mind which one of us is right. From my understanding as a transcendentalist, we're all going to go to heaven. It's just a matter of whether we want to come back again because we haven't finished our mission. Okay, if you remember, the puzzle on the ossuary looks like that. And then it's got, what's that? Okay, all right.
He plans on.
Gosh. Well, I'm going to use this up here. I'm going to put it down here because I've got to use this up here. You're going to have to stand up.
Oh my, this is some real history. This was 2015, and Scott Walter and Arthur Faram at the same convention. That's epic. I really need to get a hold of Arthur Faram. And what an epic guy, as is Scott Walter. Shout out Shem, shout out Orion, shout out Resistor, shout out Begu Derbart, shout out Careless Whispers, shout out Beneficial TV, Flat Earth Randy, WPG Lighting for Truth 2, Gerald, Matt G, Rhonda Butterfly, Tranquil Vortex, New West Reset Frankie, KGV London Man, and I believe Abbott Huffman, Wally Foxtrot Tango, Stefan Callan, Alien Girl 111. Have I missed anyone? I think I got you all. Alex joining. Shout out to you as well, brother. And with Alex, there we go. Let's continue on.
Okay, you got the earthly God and the heavenly God. And this is the symbol on the ossuary. You've got the earthly God, and then you've got this right here, which is Scott Wolter's hooked X. And I must say, I thought he was on the wrong track for years and years. But once I finished this project, he was right on target. That is the symbol for Jesus. Another part of the monogram was a tau cross, and they left it a little bit off center so you could tell it was not part of the monogram. So I'm going to construct this puzzle and narrate it as I go along. You've got a earthly God named Jesus who was crucified.
That was the first half.
Died, and ascended into heaven as a God to sit at the right hand of God. That's my interpretation.
You used the term.
All right, so I paused that right there. So earlier on in this presentation at the start, Arthur Faram was showing in this cross how you rotate around and it dictates from Sumerian to modern language and different symbols and reading all the different discs, whether it's a command or rule that comes from above, from the heavens, from the demigods or aliens, or from Earth, from an earthly command from humans. And that here he's saying, confirming Scott Wolter's research about the Jesus cross and deciphering it and confirming it with him. So quite fascinating. Hadn't seen this before. Let's continue on.
Right hand of God, but you drew your symbol on the left side of your God symbol.
If God's sitting on a throne looking at you, that's to be the right side. If he's sitting looking at you, that's his right side.
If he's facing us.
Yeah, if he's facing you, which he would be doing if he was on a throne. Okay, here's those symbols again. And the reason I put them up there again is, as you can see, we have a chronology down through time of the heavenly God symbol. Ancient Japan, ancient Sumeria, Buddhist, Coptic, King Solomon, Byzantine. These are 8-pointed. This is 4-pointed. Even Catholic, even though I won't tell you the truth about the presentation that I'm giving, know about the earthly God symbol. But if they told us about it, they'd lose control. To push this home, this is Axum, Ethiopia, where the Ethiopians are supposed to have taken the Ark of the Covenant, and in this building where it was supposed to have been housed, you can see the heavenly God here, and the earthly God here, and the heavenly God here. And this is the back of the building. Here you've got the heavenly God here, and the earthly God here, and the heavenly God here. So this is pervasive throughout religion down through time. And if nothing else, this presentation is an argument for world religion because we're all worshiping the same people. This is one of the churches. They have 11 churches in Ethiopia that are cut out of solid rock below ground. And look at the roof. The roof is a symbol of the earthly God.
Good morning, everyone.
I love this one. I don't know how old it is. It's probably pretty old because it has the really ancient Japanese symbols for the heavenly God and the earthly God on it. And I don't know if that's Egyptian. Does anybody know if that's Egyptian? I didn't think it was. It's probably Jewish or some other.
That's a wild story. You gotta come on and tell that sometime, Orion.
Okay, here's the Ainu of Japan, and they've been relegated to an Aboriginal tribe, just like the tribes in Australia. But on his sword here, you can see the sun disk with mums in the center, and the Teflon on his headdress, just like the Jewish Teflon. I have wondered my whole life where the Plains Indians came from, because they don't look like anybody in the rest of the world that I know of. And they're very striking people and definitely different than most. But watch this. These both are Japanese Ainu. Here's a Canadian Ainu. The Ainus, just to push home the fact that they were all over the earth. There are Ainu tribes.
The Ainu tribes of Japan and Canada. Never heard of them before, and that's amazing. I believe that, Ryan. I believe that. That's freaking hilarious. Amazing and awesome, and glad you had a good time. And all right. Yeah, I knew. Just like the Anunnaki.
Tribes all over the earth, and they still call themselves the Ainu. If you look here, you see the sun disk with the mom. Over here, you'll see the sun disk with the mom, and more importantly, you'll see the symbol of the earthly God here, and this scroll work you'll see in a lot of places. In fact, here we are in Japan, and here we are in Canada, and you've got the same work. This is the Sulawesi tribe in Indonesia, and Indonesia used to be part of the Japanese Empire back in ancient times. What I put this in there for is to illustrate the facial features of the Indonesians. Here's an American Plains native, a Hopi Indian. Like I said, I think they're closer to the real spirituality than any of the other tribes, although all of them are pretty spiritual. And the reason I've got this in there is there's your God symbol, and here's your mom's. See if there's anything else there. No, I don't think so. Okay, here's a pair of Plains Indian moccasins. If you notice, there's a Jewish pyramid with the Eye of Horus in the center. You've got the Egyptian step pyramid. You've got a throne like was found in Russia. You've got the Celtic pyramids with the entrance on the side, and you've got the earthly God symbol here. So it kind of proves that they knew what was going on. The Thunderbird, I'm sure that's near and dear to all you guys' heart. It was used to well, just what it says there, a symbol of power. There's a Thunderbird that was unearthed from Göbekli Tepe, 10,000 BC, and there's a Native American Thunderbird, pretty close. And there's a number of other ones I have. When I first put this together, it was a 4-hour presentation, and I had to cut it down to 1 or 1.5 hours. So you're only seeing a quarter of what I got. I think the spirits were looking down on me when I was putting my presentation together, because just a few months ago while I was putting my presentation together, this appeared as a crop circle in England. And here you've got the Thunderbird, you've got the earthly gods, heavenly gods, earthly gods, heavenly gods, the sun disk, the Horus, the earth, the moon, and this here has been the Faram family logo for over 1,000 years.
Oh, that was a gift.
Wasn't it a gift? I think it was. Okay, I'm going to show you the earthly God, which is the cross. And it's probably going to get boring, but I just want to show the continuity down through time. Here and this is an Egyptian. Okay, this is from Göbekli Tepe too. And here you have the earthly God. You've got what will be an Egyptian hieroglyph in later times. And you've got this symbol here, which I don't know what is, but you'll find out that it shows up in a very unlikely place later on in my presentation. There's Switzerland. You've got the earthly God symbol and the sun symbol all wrapped into one. This is Peru, petroglyphs in Peru. You've got the earthly God symbol, the heavenly God symbol, and that cross of the superior God that we talked about before. And here you've got two earths. There's an underground structure in Peru. It's 100 by 130 feet wide, and it has the earth symbol on it. Pre-Columbian mound culture in east central U.S. And it is prolific with these things. There's one, there's two, there's some on the pot over here, but they're everywhere. There's a Native American medicine wheel in Mesa, Pennsylvania. That's probably modern, but it still shows the continuity. Antiquity, some of the things that dug up from the past. Once again, we'll go to Göbekli Tepe. And you've got the bird worshiping the sun and the bird worshiping the sun. So, and they're 9,000 years apart. There's Göbekli Tepe again. You've got the hands and the buckle and the phallic symbol. You'll find, I found, and they're not all up here, that all through these statues in early time, like in 10,000, 8,000 BC, there was a whole lot of phallic symbols because it was a time when the people were trying to replenish the earth. And if you remember in the Bible, it says, go forth and multiply.
Or a time when everyone became
so here we
a
have
dick.
One in 10,000 BC and one in 3,000 BC.
A stone dick, nonetheless.
Göbekli Tepe, 10,000 BC, with the cross, a phallic symbol from Göbekli Tepe. Now this is interesting, and you're going to see some more of this later. These here, apparently, are heavenly gods that came down to visit these other people. And you'll notice they've got the 8 lines that shows they're heavenly gods. And these must be holy men. And you've seen halos on a lot of medieval pictures and stuff. This has this type of halo, and the rest of them have this type of halo. And notice there's no lines in it, which would indicate they're just holy men. Now, if you look at this, you've got the Catholic the heavenly God. You've got the Catholic earthly God, or Lord, whichever you prefer. And over here, just like on the Australian wall cave painting, you've got the holy man, and here again, Jesus with the earthly God. So they know what's going on. They just not telling us. Here's another continuity of buildings down through time. You've got these different pyramids, and they all have 3 doors on it as an entrance. That's a lot more than a coincidence. The all-seeing eye of God, once again, shows continuity. The Sumerian, the Egyptian, the Jewish, and the United States shows that our bosses know what's going on, but they ain't telling us. Okay, we've got, this is Mayan. And if you'll remember through your research, the Mayans used to have sacrifices and so forth. So I would put them in the bad guy category. And I think there's some other things that would indicate that also. But what I wanted to show you, and I think we're going to see this again somewhere, is this space suit. But look in here, there's a man inside of it. So it'd be kind of hard to say that this is not a suit of some sort. You're going to love this one. This is a European coin dated 1656. And of course, it's a flying saucer, one that like we see, but look what's on the bottom of it, the Japanese moon. Here's another one, 17th century coin. And the translation of this thing right here, little effect, though attacked by many. So that kind of supports the fact that they quit coming because we were trying to kill them. And they are, you know, they have great powers while they're in the machines, but they get out of the machines and they're vulnerable. Here's a space vehicle on an Egyptian tomb, probably supported by some sort of magnetism or gravity. But the point is that there's a mom right there. Okay, how many people have seen this picture here? Okay, I think not as many as I thought. This is a very famous picture that happened, that was painted in European 16th century. And all the descriptions of it, when you read them in any book you see it in, says, just like in the Hindu text, they thought it was spaceships fighting each other because of the crashed spaceship here. But I went back and read the text real close, and what it says is, remember us, we're the sun gods, we're the good guys, we're bringing spheres of knowledge, these are Torahs, which are information, and that were not up there for a long while this was being displayed. After this was all displayed for a while, disappeared by itself. And it says, please quit throwing spears at us. And then a hologram comes out of here and crashes, as if to say, don't throw spears at us, we'll crash, or we're going to die. But anyway, it seems to me to be a totally different interpretation than what most people give it. I don't know if anybody's seen these or not, but they're very interesting. They show man with dinosaurs, which kind of supports my argument. These came out of a cave in Peru. This is in Cambodia, I believe.
Which is the dinosaur?
Yeah, all of them have dinosaurs, but one of them has a man with a dinosaur.
Where?
Upper right.
Right there. And these couldn't have been fake because there's over 50,000 of them.
Glaciers did it.
Yeah, the glaciers did. There's a petroglyph in Winnemucca, Nevada. It's got the Japanese monk.
Paused it there for a second. It was the Inca stones that he was just showing and talking about there, that there's over 50,000 of them. Yeah, these guys right here, Inca stones. And then the carving in the bottom right corner is from Cambodia, from a Cambodian temple, maybe in Angkor Wat. I'm not 100% sure. Either way, let's get back to it. And I'm going to be doing a full episode on the Inca stones in the future. They're just wild.
Cave in Peru. This is in Cambodia, I believe.
Which is the dinosaur?
Yeah, all of them have dinosaurs, but one of them has a man with a dinosaur.
Where?
Upper right.
Top right.
right there. And these couldn't have been fake because there's over 50,000 of them.
Glaciers did it.
Yeah,
50,000.
glaciers, you know.
They ain't fake.
There's a
Dinotopia was
Monograph in
real.
Nevada. It's got the Japanese monk. Prehistoric Ireland, 10,000 years later, Japanese monks. Yeah, we had a blank. This is geoglyphology, and this is what I told you. I discovered that is an ancient science that was used to denote territories.
All right, so pausing it here because this is super important. Let's hear what Arthur Faram has to say about geoglyphology, and this is his discovery. He's written several books about it, and it's how he found the Medicine Hat Badland Guardians and the Yanaguni structures, or Yanaguni pyramid site. The radials, geoglyphs here that have been gone over briefly, and that this whole presentation was titled and linked to. So let's actually hear what Arthur Faram has to say about geoglyphology, his major discovery.
And Winnemucca was where I was just showing you those petroglyphs. But this is called Winnemucca Pyramid. I mean, the Pyramid Lake Pyramid. And as you'll notice, it's got several pointers to point to different.
Pyramid Lake Pyramid. This is in. No, yeah, Lake Nevada, Pyramid Lake, Nevada. So he's doing geoglyphs of Pyramid Lake, Nevada. So this is the pyramid in Pyramid Lake, Nevada, I believe, if I'm understanding this correctly.
But this
Wow.
is the one I picked out because if you trace that, it goes down to 3808 degree bearing, which points exactly to the northern tip of Japan, which is where those petroglyphs right next to it came from. Yeah, we had a blank. This is geoglyphology, and this is what I told you. I discovered that is an ancient science that was used to denote territories. And Winnemucca was where I was just showing you those petroglyphs. But this is called Winnemucca Pyramid. I mean, the Pyramid Lake Pyramid. And as you'll notice, it's got several pointers to point to different places that are important. But this is the one I picked out because if you trace that, it goes down to 3808 degree bearing, which points exactly to the northern tip of Japan, which is where those petroglyphs right next to it came from. Here's some Native American petroglyphs that match the Japanese petroglyphs. You've got the square. These spirals, if you'll remember, if they start to the right are God, if they start to the left, they're earth, or heavenly and earth. These are called tripholons. And as you can see, they occurred over a wide range of territory on the earth.
There's some earrings and then the silent auction made in Greece that look like.
Well, if you want to be in the know, you need to buy them. There's California, believe it or not. There's an earthly God with the sun, and here's the sun with the rays sticking out. And I heard somebody say turkey tracks in one of the previous presentations. There they are right there, along with the other God symbols. And like I said, there are a lot of phallic symbols. There's two right there and one right there. This is in Southwest USA. There's a Great Cross again, the sun, tree of life. South Africa, believe it or not, there's that cross. You've got the heavenly spiral, heavenly. All these are heavenly. You got the sun. The turtle was a big sacred symbol way back, and you've seen a couple of them in the presentations prior to this. Okay, you can see the giant. You can see the humans. And this is a right spiral, which means it's a heavenly God. And you got both of these people grabbing onto it. So I would suspect that both of them came from somewhere. Oh, I love this one. UFO, look at the trail it's making. And these two guys running from it. Here's someplace you wouldn't expect. Symbols. Hawaii. You've got the left spiral, Earth, wisdom, and God's giving you wisdom. Easter Island in Norway. Here's that symbol I told you to look for later on. There it is right there, the same one that's found in Göbekli Tepe. And look how far away it is. And you have the heavenly spiral and the earthly spiral. I couldn't leave this one out. If you'll see right there is the earthly God. You got a right spiral. And so indeed this area is heaven. And down here you've got the earthly God again. Now strangely enough, I put that in there to show that Easter Island has these symbols on the back of the moai. But an interesting fact is these are all imitations. The Japanese made these to overlook a cemetery. Why would they do that if they didn't have a relationship with Eden?
Wow.
Okay, these are ancient walls, and there's always a lot of talk about the walls. How did they do that? How did they lift them and all that other stuff? Well, remember, they were psychic, and they could lift these things. If they got on the same frequency as the rock, it becomes weightless.
Has that been done recently?
The Tibetans can do it today. And Frank Joseph can attest to that. If he's read Churchward's work, is Frank Joseph in here? Is he left? Okay. Okay, these rocks here were probably hewn, but these rocks here were poured. And there's been a lot of speculation about how did they get all these angles in these rocks? And they speculated that they had to have been poured to do that. Well, they have been poured. And these, you'll see these on all of them. And what these are is air holes. Because when you pour it into the mold, if you didn't have air holes, you'd have air pockets down here in the bottom. So anytime you see these, you know that it was a poured rock.
Or
Geopolymer.
Interpretation of that Peruvian.
Sorry, paused it there for a moment. Geopolymer evidence. So it's kind of interesting that he's saying that they're levitating rocks, but then also it's geopolymer. But I guess depending whether it was demigods or humans, makes sense.
Kind of activity, or pre-Peruvian, is that those knobs are for putting a rope on, and you loop below it, and then you go up to the top. And
well, that's an interesting theory, but they're pretty small.
well, most of them are pretty big. That was unusual.
Well, there's some more pictures of them that might change your mind. Here's a wall in Japan, and there's been a lot of chatter about all this stuff in Peru. Well, just to prove my point, here's a Japanese wall that's both square and poured, and they've analyzed these poured ones. And once again,
Sunny Park trailer
is not from the earth.
That famous.
How do they know that?
They analyzed it in a laboratory.
Analyze it. What were the results?
I
They
agree,
told them it
angel
wasn't from
dreams.
this world.
Well, they don't know, I guess it could be, but they don't know of the elements yet.
What?
I believe he said they don't know that it's from this world because they can't identify the elements.
Right.
Therefore, a preliminary conclusion.
Well, here's a wall in Siberia, which I doubt if many people know about. So you got the same thing. And here's some more of those poured rocks with the air holes in them. The ones that you can't see air holes in, I suspect the knobs are on the other side. These I've never seen before until I started researching. I don't know if that's a phallic symbol or a green silo or what, but they're very interesting.
In Peru and Bolivia around Lake Titicaca
here's,
is where those are.
Some motif in India, and the reason I've got that on there is to illustrate that the mums, which means there are 3 races in the world that advise not marrying outside their race. One's the Japanese, one's the East Indians, and the other one's the Jewish. And strangely enough, those are the same 3 races that were involved in the Anunnaki, the debacle, when that happened. And I suspect that they imposed those rules so they don't get their gene pool polluted with people like us. We have a lot of evil traits, but we're able to control them with our intellect. And thank God. But there's some people that may not be.
Now, what were the 3 ones?
The what?
What were those 3?
The images I'm not savvy on, but what I did it for is to show the mums, the Japanese mums.
I rewound that last little part because it is so crucial
Just to
right here. What he
illustrate
has to
the
say.
mums, which means there are 3 races in the world that advise not marrying outside their race. One's the Japanese, one's the East Indians, and the other one's the Jewish. And strangely enough, those are the same 3 races that were involved in the Anunnaki, the debacle, when that happened. And I suspect that they imposed those rules so they don't get their gene pool polluted with people like us. We have a lot of evil traits, but we're able to control them with our intellect. And thank God. But there's some people that may not be.
Now, what were the 3 ones?
The what?
What were those 3?
The images I'm not savvy on, but what I did it for is to show the mums, the Japanese mums. Okay, this has been on TV a lot, on Ancient Aliens. And it's been speculated that these are faces of all the cultures around the world. And I have to subscribe to that because now we know that the Japanese teachers went all over the world. And this is probably a compilation of all the people that they were teaching. Okay, here's some monoliths that looks like they were cut with lasers. And we've seen these before many times. But you may not have seen these. These are both in Japan. And they look just as spectacular as the other ones. Look at the alignment. It doesn't look straight until you put a ruler on it. There's one in Alexandria, Egypt. Now, why would anybody make a sewer pipe or whatever that is by taking a big block and cutting the pieces off around it? There's another ancient drill. Oh, I love this one. This is very descriptive. You have Turkish tombs down here, and you got Japanese tombs up here, and they display the exact same qualities. Okay. Here was an important person, and you can see it has a place for a statue here. And down here was an important person, and you can see the sculptures up here. But the important people got 3 arches. The less important people got 1 arch. This guy didn't get any. There's 1 arch, 2 arches, 3 arches, 1 arch. But that kind of ties both Turkey and Japan together. A lot of people don't think there's cut stone in Greece, but there you go. Iran, India, that's polished stone. Okay, geoglyphology. Now we're going to I'm wrapping this up. This is the science that I discovered about 6 years ago that is able to describe territories as large.
Boom. Pausing it here again, taking notes. He's about to explain geoglyphology. So he's going to explain this system of Yanaguni here with the Yanaguni pyramid and different angles and the radials of it, mapping it all out. This is what we've been waiting for. Without further ado, here we go.
Just continents. And what I discovered when I first, no, it's not there. When I first showed you the Japanese territories that they taught in, they were following the longitudinal lines around the earth. And I suspect that got tiresome because it cuts across a lot of different land. But later on, and you can look in Plato's Critias, that the lands were divided up amongst Plato's brothers and sisters, and each one was given a piece of land. And I suspect this is when it switched from longitudinal territories to geographic territories. And what geoglyphology does, it describes whatever territory it is that the maker wanted to describe. And I'll give you some illustrations here. Okay, that's the Etruscan tombs of 800 BC. And incidentally, the Etruscans and the Celts went together to fight the Roman, not the Empire, but the Roman Republic was before the Empire. But they worked together to defeat the Roman Republic, but then eventually the Romans got strong enough to drive them out. And the Etruscans founded Portugal, and the Celts founded Galatia. And the border between the two is the oldest border in Europe. Now, if you'll notice all these little notches, these are very similar to Celtic tombs in Ireland. Watch what happens if you extend those notches out using Google Earth. You get the Etruscan Empire. So anybody that says that the Etruscans weren't going across the ocean just hadn't looked at this. They identify specific spots around, geographically identifiable spots around the world. That identifies their territories. This particular one goes to the tip of the Mediterranean. That one goes to the tip of an island. That one goes to the tip of an island. That one goes to an island, of course. This one here, believe it or not, the territory that eventually became the United States and was given to the Templars by the Portuguese for helping them out, get the Moors out of there. I was wondering why everybody was doing this now. The territory that was the northeast corner of the territory that the Portuguese gave to the Templars that was eventually whittled down a little bit and became the United States. This goes right to the very southeast corner. And this was 800 BC. So this territory existed long before Columbus even thought about it. Here, this is another reference point. If it goes to the tip of a prominent projection, believe it or not, that one goes to the exact tip of South America. And that one goes to the border between Galicia and Portugal. Of course, this goes to all the islands. But
10 minutes.
okay, I'll be done. The reference points that tell you when you're at the end of the line could be an island, the highest mountain in the range, a peninsula, tip of a peninsula, the tip of a projection, the tip of a water body. There's several references, so you know when you get to the end of the line. When I first started this, I had to go and follow this line on Google down close to the Earth all the way till I found the endpoint. But now that I've done it for a long time, I practically know where the endpoint's going to be before I even start. Now these are in Peru, and these are the neatest geoglyphs that I have ever seen. And they're the only ones I know of that are above ground. Most of them are down at ground level. And to give you an idea how this geoglyph thing works, this is a focal point. And if you run a line from there through that one, it will go somewhere. And if you start there and go through there, start there and go through there, and start there and go through there, those will all point to reference points that these all combine to mark a territory. Now, another way they do it is they start in the center of the big circle and run a line through the small circle that's next to it, and that'll go someplace. So there's several different ways that they line up their geoglyphs.
How do they do that? How do you line up 3 spots when one of them's halfway around the world?
The question he asks is how does one align these when the destination is halfway around the world?
It's an excellent question, but you forget we're dealing with extraterrestrials. That's an excellent question, but you forget that we're dealing with extraterrestrials.
How did the extraterrestrials do it?
I don't know, I wasn't there. I will tell you though that every line that projects has to be a true magnetic line. You can't use magnetic lines, or because you have magnetic deviation that throws you off. Okay, this is from last year's presentation. Give you an idea of a geoglyph. This is Beaver Island, and this is the main geoglyph on the island, which is on the highest point on the island. And if you run a line from there through there, it points to the Templars put that there. But if you run a line from there through there, it goes to another Templar island over where I think it's the Ottawa River comes off of St. Lawrence Seaway.
Is that a straight line?
Yes, it's following the curvature of the Earth, but it is a straight line. There's Corral, Peru, and this is another way you can make a geoglyph. Is the edges of the building. It's hard to tell by this, but you can see right here, there are none of the edges of these rooms that are parallel. They're all pointing in different directions. This makes it a little easier to see, but still, since it was drawn by somebody that wasn't familiar with what I'm talking about, it's a little bit difficult to see because I'm sure they did parallel lines on most of these. But you can see that's not parallel there. That's not parallel. None of these lines are parallel, but they made them parallel because they didn't know about what I'm talking about now. Okay, this is what the subject of my speech was going to be about until I got into studying Japanese history. Remember, I pointed out that was the territories the way they did them to begin with, and then they divided them up. And what the Yanaguni pyramid does, it designates one of the territories that Plato talked about. And I found every territory on the face of the earth that were given to Poseidon's brothers and sisters. And I know I'm correct because they all fit together like a jigsaw puzzle. They all butt right against each other, none of them overlap. This is Yanaguni Island. And this is just off. Japan used to own this, but now it belongs to Taiwan. But it gives you an idea of where Yanaguni is. This is the very last southern island owned by Japan currently. There's a face overlooking the Yanaguni Pyramid, which is underwater. There's the Yanaguni Pyramid as it sits today, under about 20 feet of water. A lot of people say that the pyramid was formed by nature. When you see structures like this in the pyramid, it's kind of hard to deny them. I'm wondering if that's an orb or a bubble. This is another pyramid, which is like a Mayan pyramid that's not too far away from the Yanaguni. I believe this one is off of Okinawa. Here's a face that's built in. This is Yanaguni Pyramid with people diving on it. And as you can see here, there's a very, very well-defined face of a warrior or something here with the headdress, the feathers, the eyes, the chin, the mouth. And here you've got the exact same, even the eyes are the same over here. It's the exact same thing on Easter Island. This is 10,000 BC. This is 900 AD.
The face on the left underwater.
What's that?
The face on the left underwater.
Correct, yes.
Wow. So not a lot of people are aware of the carving at Yanaguni pyramid, but I guess that is because they don't want people to know about it, because then that automatically adds a level of, yeah, someone carved it before it went under the water, and well, if they carved that, they probably carved the whole thing. Also interesting. Oh, much love, Tranquil Vortex Sister, 2:20 in the morning. Get your sleep. Sweet dreams. God bless. Thanks for joining in, and we'll catch you on the next one for sure. But yeah, Arthur Faram saying that they just extending the radials out from where they are, and on the pyramid sides, as well as the earthenworks. And also the Easter Island face carved in. Didn't know about this guy either. Gonna have to look
It was
more
a
into
water
it.
when it was made. Okay, that's what the pyramid looks like from the side. And when we talk about giants back in the old days, these steps are very, very tall. But then again, all of these lines, none of them are parallel, and you can see it right here. That's a view from the top. And as you can see, none of the lines are parallel. They all point somewhere.
I paused it again just as this kind of like, if that's like a nose, face, a hat, like, is that a little dude, like a little reptile dude? I don't know. That could
There's
just
where
be
they point once you run the mouse. And those lines depict the Japanese Empire at the time this was built, which was between 8 and 10,000 BC. There it is. That's the empire that the Yanaguni Pyramid points out. Now, you're going to see the next picture, which is the area that the Japanese were trying to conquer during World War II. And it's almost identical to this. I'm sure that they were trying to recapture their old territory. What confirms this is there's a little island right there that we owned at the time called Attu Island. It's barren. It's only a couple of miles across. Why in the world with the Japanese in the Second World War trying to defend that
Tattoo
island.
Island.
We went over there and knocked them out in a couple of days, but they were trying to hold that island. And now we know why. Now,
I don't want to interrupt, but I do have to let you know your time is up. So try to wrap it up quickly, please.
I will.
We appreciate your time.
Okay.
Savages, how dare you end this ridiculously epic presentation. I wish Arthur Faram was able to go on for hours upon hours more, but this seems to be the only video that's working that's been linked on his website. And, well, that's the last map up there showing Japan's empire during World War II, and like he was saying, replicating exactly what's mapped out at the Yanaguni pyramid underwater. I guess let's listen to the last minute or two that we have left here. Minute and a half. All right.
There's the World War II, the World War II area, and I think they would have succeeded in getting their land back if they hadn't attacked Pearl Harbor or gone into China. I think we'd let them have it. Okay, there's a phallic symbol on the north end of the thing. There's a complete description of the male and female reproductive system. I suspect the male would have gone here. This is a bath, taken a bath, gone down here, got on this altar. The female would probably started here, gone through here. That's a bath that she would have got on the altar. Before the Anunnaki got involved, the Japanese would select 2 of their best subjects and marry them to improve the race. And I suspect that this was a ceremonial site for that very reason. I'm almost done. There's Göbekli Tepe, and I suspect that these round structures were sexual ceremonial sites because there are phallic symbols there too, as you can see.
Ended
There's
on a
Valkyrie.
phallic
No
sexual
artifacts have ever been
Right,
found there, but you see here's another auditorium for possibly sexual activity. There's Chocolate Canyon that didn't.
Oh,
They
that's
got,
funny.
as you probably know, they've got circles there too. There's my references. That's it.
All right. Stone phalluses was how it ended, but for anyone that I recommend everyone actually that is watching this, I am posting the link to that video and Arthur Faram's YouTube channel with only 46 subscribers. So that means 4 of you have already gone and subscribed since this has started. Let's make it 400 more and 10x Arthur Faram's subscribers, and every single person, please ask Arthur to come over and do an interview with us on this podcast, because we need Arthur Faram, and we're working on the Alberta Badland Geoglyph site, and it's time to get Arthur Faram fully on board. Let's see what. Yeah, he just got the one video from 8 years ago. That's it. That's all. So, that really sucks. And then there is actually one more 3.5 minute video that was linked on his website that's not on his YouTube, someone else's. Let's see what it is, and it's about the Bosnian pyramids, but I'm not sure.
Philosopher Plato was telling the truth about the assignment of ancient territories to the gods in the golden age of civilization. This is not the first time that one of the ancient philosophers' writings have been found to be true. Statements previously considered myths by Homer were found to be true when, in 1871, the amateur German archaeologist Heinrich Schliemann uncovered the mythical city of Troy. In Plato's work titled Critias, he wrote about the golden age of civilization, when the children of God were assigned territories to manage. populate and live in peace with their neighbors. A portion of Plato's text follows. In the days of old the gods had the whole earth distributed among them by allotment. There was no quarreling, for
Alrighty, we are gonna stop sharing that one because, well, that was not Arthur Faram, and that was just harsh on the ears for everyone. Once again, it was the Arthur Faram Foundation website that we were looking at right here. And for anyone interested in this, here is the website to check out all of Arthur Faram's work. And let's go like this, like that. And for instance, the Badland Guardians that he discovered through Geoglyphology, and that the geoglyphs plotting out west tip of Ireland, Matland, Cape Cod, Malkua volcano. Oh, no worries, Shem. I sent Shem the link in case he was interested in joining, but he is at work, so he cannot. But maybe he'll join us tonight with the Hans Dietrich Woo Woo Wednesday episode coming out. It's Hans Day tonight. All right, so enough of that. Let's get back to what this is actually labeled about. And is this the video? No, that is the picture. Wrong one. So, oops, don't want that button. We want this button. There we go. Okay. All right. This is the backside valley of Mount Yamnuska with the Yamnuska Guardians at well, the Mountain Guardians. Sorry. Whoops, doodles. Wrong button. Okay. Let's hit play. I believe this is the first time I discovered these. First time recording them. The first hike on the backside. Yeah, I'm muted out because look at them there. So when I went back last summer with my dad, he zoomed in on them and took some photos and swears they're bear faces, the two big ones. Anamorphic monolithic statue guardians, the Yamnuska Guardians. And as there we go. So strange geology, all parallel lines going throughout a lot of it. And then there's the stairs, the carved stairs. Oh, that could be a guardian, maybe. Or I just suffer from immense delusional pareidolia. Oh, darn it, I didn't pause it there. So there could be one on that side right there too, and one right there too, potentially.